Hello, my name is David Jalali. I have written a book on terrorism. It's called Terrorism, the Truth, which is available on Amazon.com. I have, after 9/11, actually, and it was up to 2005, I did some research on the subject, which interested me to look deeper into this issue of terrorism because I found that to be a threat to humanity, not only in United States, but all over the world. So what I decided to do is to research the terrorism in a global scale, not only domestic, but also international. As a result, I was able to compile all my findings in this book, Terrorism, the Truth, which is available on Amazon.com under David Jalali, author, and decided lately to also publish a video on this and talk about the subject of terrorism. First, we have to define terrorism. Terrorism is defined by FBI as violence against the public for a political aim, a political goal. And so violence. Now, what causes violence or what results in violence is like we identify what causes violence for a political aim, and then we can find the perpetrator or the real terrorist. Because what we hear on the news media is basically to manufacture consent, as Noam Chomsky says. What we see in the news media nowadays is a show, is not news. It's just like a Hollywood movie. Because all these corporate media is trying to make profits and say enough to maximize profits at the ignorance of the public. The more ignorance the public would be, the easier it is for the corporations to maximize profits from lies and deception. My intention is to enlighten the audience. As Shakespeare says, ignorance is dark, by Shakespeare, which is true. I very strongly agree with that. Because for example, if the room is dark, an individual walks in the room, can't see any place, he falls, he may break a leg, or he may hurt himself and everybody else in the dark room. But if there is light in the room, then safety increases. And ignorance is lack of knowledge. So when there is not enough knowledge or there are deception and lies, generally people become ignorant and they make mistakes. They don't make the right choices. They don't support the right cause because all deception, all dog is not the facts. And then we get where we are today in America. My speech or my talking, what I'm saying or what I've said in my book is not for the people who seek violence. On the contrary, is for the people who oppose violence. So my talks, whatever I talk about, is for the people who resent violence and who want to live in a peaceful world. And that's my intention, to make a world, especially the America where I live, a more safe and peaceful place. So everything I say today, if you listen to carefully, it can be researched online from multiple sources, and it's going to shed the light on facts to enlighten people, to increase the knowledge of the audience, to make a world and America a safer place. Because the reason that is so dangerous in America today, right now, I was looking some statistics before the coronavirus, like 6 months ago. It was like over 70 people a day get killed a day as a result of gun-related accident. Maybe suicide, including suicide. Three of them a day were killed by the police, and the rest of them maybe gun going off or child pick up a gun or somebody accidentally shoot somebody. So total gun related is 77 people a day. That's about like over 30,000, almost over 25, 26,000 people a year killed by gun related accident violence. And close to 10,000 people, over 10,000 people a year are killed by police, direct shooting police, public. So see, we actually are living in a war zone, but we look like it looks peaceful on the surface. And that peaceful is as a result, it looks on the surface because the corporate media tries to pull a curtain over the facts and falsify uh, stories, not tell the truth, say enough truth to be able to sustain the ignorance of the society, to maximize profits for a minority group at the despair of the majority, 99%. That is the job of corporate media. Corporate media does not tell anybody the facts. But I'm going to go and dig the facts and scientifically talk about this. I've done over 10 years of research, and I can tell you what terrorism is. I want to define that for you and identify the terrorists and also give you the solution. Now, if this video is going to be longer than you can watch it in segments. But I'm sure it's going to be very informative and it's going to be interesting. Now, defining terrorism, we define that violence against people for political aim. Now, we say what causes violence now? Wars, discrimination, occupation, invasion. Doesn't these create violence? Aren't these for a political aim? They are. War causes violence. When the war or invasion causes violence, occupation causes violence, and they're all for political game. They either want to take over the country or they want to control people for some people for maximizing profits, making more money. Support the tyranny, support the dictatorship, toppling democratically elected governments to replace them with puppet dictators, to oppress their own people so certain companies, certain countries can benefit from that. That is terrorism. So, having explained that, now which country in the world causes more wars, has caused more war? Let's look at the past 100 years. Which country has caused more wars, has invaded more countries, has occupied more countries, has supported occupation through their proxies or through their stooges, and has basically discriminated against its own population and all over the world. Okay, in order to identify that perpetrator of these crimes against humanity, we have to see who has committed these crimes more, has committed more wars, more invasion, more occupation, more toppling democratically elected governments around the world and replace them with puppet dictators, and supported occupation of other ones and ethnic cleansing. Who supported those? First, we have to identify, let's start at home. See, I live in America. I love America. America is a great country as a country, because every country has three parts. Let me explain this. One is geographical location and situation, which America geographically is only 500 years old. It's young. It has a lot of undeveloped, basically developed, but in rich areas and a beautiful land, beautiful country. I've traveled most of the places inside United States, and it's beautiful. And the people, American people, are generous people generally, and very kind and more welcoming than other nations, and more generous than other nations. So, and then the third part is the government. Now, government of United States is the one who was built over 500 years ago. This country, let's go back. So once we review, if we start from home, we're going to review the history of the United States and see whether United States qualifies the government to be labeled as a terrorist government. If not, then it doesn't. Now, we say terrorism is use of violence against ordinary people, against and the wars, invasion, occupation, discrimination, support of dictators. These are all violence against ordinary and for a political aim. Therefore, they are terrorists. They are they are called they are terrorism. Now, United States was discovered 500 over 500 years ago by basically pirates. These Christopher Columbus and those guys, they came here. I mean, back then there was no GPS. Ordinary people will not just hit the ocean looking for discoveries. No, these were basically pirates. They discovered this country, United States. They're not this country, basically United States continent. I mean, the United States continent of America. Let me correct myself. American continent was discovered over 500 years ago by Christopher Columbus, which I believe these were a bunch of pirates because what they did when they came to this country, they showed their nature. And then they basically, the Europeans with the leadership of UK and other France and other ones later came to the northern continent of United America. And then the people, the natives at the time when this American continent was discovered, there were over 130 million natives lived here in this continent. Today, in 2020, my research shows there are less than 5 million natives here, American Indians. So what happened to this 130 million over 500 years ago? Why are there 5 million right now? So apparently there was done ethnic cleansings, promising them, because when the Europeans and these pirates, they came, discovered the country, they were fed by the natives. If the natives were bad, they wouldn't let them get off the ship, but they welcomed them. They came to the continent. They give them food so they can survive. And when they get their strength, they brought their guns and killed basically the natives, took their lands and whatever they had, and establish various countries. Let's say America, that's my home, that's where I live. So we're going to talk about that for now. That created United States. Then they wanted to work and develop this very rough land. They didn't, basically Americans, in the history, they call British, we call them our forefathers. So the forefathers discovered this country, basically killed, ate their food, the native Americans or the Indians, and they massacred them basically, the ethnic cleansing, and they by providing them, giving them disease, and then trying to give them vaccine, they make them give them the vaccine so they can't have any kids. So the population either got killed, natives, or they were reduced to 5 million today from 130 million over 5 years ago. So this is a little history. This creates, this is terrorism, isn't it? It's just to kill innocent for a political aim to build a country. So that is one. Then this country, let's go just review now the past 100 years. Most of the wars you see going on in the world, part of it is United States, one side, whether directly or indirectly. So wars create terrorism. Okay, so the biggest warmonger in the world is United States of America government. So that creates terrorism. Then again, there is another point here for terrorists. Now, when these wars happen, either it's to occupy a nation like Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya. Look at Iraq, Afghanistan, for they say for the reason Afghanistan was invaded was because 9/11 happened. Apparently, some Saudis, 19 people attacked Twin Towers in New York, other, and then Afghanistan and Iraq was invaded. Now, interesting part, the lie here is now we know who the terrorist is, but we know terrorists, these are caused terrorism, war, invasion. So these are one was now to give this a humanitarian face, they say because the 9/11 happened, those twin towers were attacked. But who were the twin towers attacked by? There were 19 people, like 15 of them from Saudi Arabia, a tyrant, a government established by United States, by England, our forefathers, back in the early 1900s, and then supported by the United States, the new empire, all throughout these years, and right now with billions of $70 billion a year arms provided to these dictators in Saudi Arabia, and they stone that's a Stone Age government. They cut hair with the sword. There is no elections, and absolute power is in the hands of one person, the king, and the king is servant of United States of America. Now, see this support a tyranny, providing arms to oppress people. This is one example. Then you can United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Oman, Kuwait, Yemen, they do that, or Jordan, Egypt. You know, these are the countries that do not have a democratic elected government. The government was imposed through a coup d'etat supported by United States, and the current dictatorship is even sustained, supported by United States. So United States basically sells more than 70 billion dollar arms to Saudi Arabia, 4 or 5 billion here to UAE, the British do to Bahrain, to Egypt, give him like almost $2 billion aid to Jordan, and these aids are not given in a form of humanitarian. It's not U.S. aid. It doesn't give money to those countries to go ahead and uh, build hospitals, roads, schools, empower their people. They aids to these dictatorship is given through weapon contracts with the American weapon makers in the United States, like $2 billion, and those weapons are given to the dictators for free to oppress their own people, so the companies can make money. Then again, it sees more money. So this terrorism is in a situation of supporting tyranny, invasion, and wars is to maximize profit for a minority. But who dies? The soldiers, American soldiers, basically, who go into these countries and get killed are the poor people, are the working class. They are the ones who don't get the only thing, they get a paycheck and they go war and get killed, and they think they are serving the country. See, I went to school, and in school they teach us geography. If anybody went to school, the borders of America is to the north is Canada, to the south is Mexico, to the east is Atlantic, to the west is Pacific Ocean. So how could somebody be in Iraq and Afghanistan and protecting our borders or protecting our security? They create insecurity because when they kill these people, they create more enemies. So this is the terrorism. Okay, now why what's the reason they go into, they said 9/11. 9/11, as I said, the 15 terrorists were from Saudi Arabia, a few of them, couple of them from Jordan, from Egypt. None of them was from Afghanistan or Iraq or Iran or Yemen or Lebanon or these countries that U.S. has invaded or trying to invade and killing those people for that reason. See, the reason people buy that because they're ignorant. If you study, even question it, then you won't volunteer to go to those countries and kill peasants for a few dollars. Because if the amount, see the budget that put for terrorism, United States military budget this year is $740 billion. That is not including the supplementals. With that, probably close to $1 trillion. Whereas Today, we see somebody like George Floyd, an American citizen, gets strangled on the corner of the street in public. Some police, Gestapo, put his knee on the citizen's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds and killed him for $20. And some individuals like Amazon owner or Trump, they make like $20 billion. 29 zeros. One individual, this system rewards that $20. Now, the $20 it kills another person like George Floyd. So this system, this because this system, the government is terrorist. They terrorize people to make profits for certain individual. And the people who support this terrorism are the ones who get billions. Ordinary people, they're so busy. Somebody guy who for $20 gets it, he probably don't have he's probably working so hard that he doesn't even have time to think and study these. Not everybody. I retired basically after retirement. I'm an academic person, and I went into research the subject of retirement because I have time, and I read multiple 20 at least 20 books on this subject of the well known, which is are referenced on the back of at the end of the Terrorism, the Truth book. But not everybody does that. So what I'm saying is to create peace through awareness. Through now, so we said that America, the terrorism, we defined that. We said what actions, wars, and I say America is most of these wars around the world, invasions. Like America has over 700 to 800 military bases in over 150 countries. Now, you telling me those countries have people of those nations voted for the United States military to go in there? No, because the United States, most of them, United States, World War II, either topple the government electrically, put a puppet in there, and they basically manufacture consent, like what the media does. Media basically manufactures consent in America by telling the truth, a little bit the truth, but adding a lot of lie to it. For example, they may say a subject, but they said the reason we invaded Afghanistan or Iraq is because we're fighting terrorism, which is not true. Actually, this creates terrorism because the real terrorists from our friends, Saudi Arabia, which is a close friend of our president and is our terrorism. Now, so basically, supporting a regime in Saudi Arabia or even Bahrain or Yemen or the ones I mentioned, Egypt, is supporting terrorism because, see, for example, Saudi Arabia king MBS was never elected. There has never been election in Saudi Arabia. He cuts anybody's head he wants, and with immunity, with support of the United States, and then he even got a journalist who was just friendly journalist who was criticizing the establishment, the dictatorship in Saudi Arabia, got chopped up in a Saudi embassy in Ankara, Turkey, and then Trump basically supports the king still and whitewashed that. So you see, everything is being whitewashed for profit, for profit. So somebody like Trump or Amazon, Bezos, or somebody else could, some of these CEOs, huge these companies can make billions of dollars in profit. A very minority, where somebody like George Floyd gets killed on the corner of the street for $20. You see, the reason you want these companies to be able to do business to maximize their profits, whereas who gets killed? American soldiers, ordinary American people who think they are defending their country's border, America's border. But America's border, as I said, if you go to school, they teach you America's border is to the north is Canada, south is Mexico, east Atlantic Ocean, west is Pacific Ocean. What is this guy doing in Afghanistan? The news media, corporate media says because to fight terrorism. But the terrorists were from Saudi Arabia and Jordan and Egypt. But nobody's there. United States not only fights them, it doesn't fight them, it gives them aid, it gives them money, weapons to suppress their people. And none of these people had elected government, these partners of. So when we say America, we need to be careful. America has three parts, as I said: geographical, people, and government. We are talking about the government because the government and politicians do not represent Americans in these represent. They lie. They may come at the beginning of representing, but as they get these donations from these politicians, they give it from these big corporations. They become the protectors of the interest of the corporation. They forget about the constituents. They may come and play act. They say, "Oh yeah, we'll listen to you. Give us $2. We do." But the policies they're going to make, they're going to support war. Now, for example, it doesn't matter whose president is. Look at all the presidents, American presidents from World War II. They all have committed crimes in Vietnam, Korea, you know, in South America, over 50 coups d'etats, which I've counted, and some of them, a lot of them are listed in my book, and they are supported by America, and they kill people, they torture, and to make money, make more money. So now we can conclude that America in that comes first to supporting terrorism. Now, so basically, see, America has the most wars against the countries, has done most invasion, has discriminated against its own population, has supported the puppet dictatorships around the world to oppress their own people, to terrorize their people, and has basically UK and our forefathers, which are British, the forefather terrorists, is actually there were only two countries who were supporting South Africa even up to 1980s. The last apartheid regime in the world was only supported by two countries late until the last breath, US and British. Now, so now the strange part is that the United States and British and some of these Western nations who are colonialists, basically, and support this terrorism, they call themselves also defenders of human rights. For example, if they want to invade Afghanistan or another country, sometimes they bring the excuse of human rights. But what about the human rights in our own partners? You know, America's partners like Saudi Arabia, like Egypt. Egypt, the president got elected, they throw him back in the jail and killed him. And this military general of the army, coup d'etat, supported by CIA, United States came to the power, and they give United States give him like over almost $2 billion arms to oppress their own people. Where with some estimate, 60-70% of Egyptians sleep in cemetery. They're so poor. But this money doesn't go build housing for them, or doesn't build medical care for them, or doesn't, it just goes to build more weapons, give it to the tyrant to oppress the people so the profiteers could profit from that, the terrorists, basically. Now, let's say, for example, another one. Now, they say if you say anything about Israel in America, you are going to be basically eliminated, basically, if we from this face of the earth. But I'm going to say something that, you know, let's say how Israel, how America, we said how America was made, came here, killing, basically ethnically cleansed the natives, Indians, and built this country through slavery, built it up, and through invasion, occupation, and stealing natural resources like Afghan. Why doesn't get out of Iraq right now? Because it has oil, it wants oil. And actually, Trump himself says, you know, we went to Syria, we want to get the oil wells. We got to hold to the oil wells. So see, even they say it, but people have to understand that. Now, the support of Israel, for example. Now, this Israel is basically a situation in back in 1948, you know, some there were Jews, Muslims, Christians are living in Palestine, Israel for thousands of years. And back in 1948, when after World War, you know, basically US and UK were the winners of the war, so they have the powers. They created the nation of Israel, which was like 1/3 of the land, or maybe 1/10 of the land that owns today. And they never had any borders defined for what the nation that was created. And they voted during the turmoil right after World War 1948, after World War II. But those people who lived there, basically, they were forced, the one who objected to that, they forced those people out, like 7,750, over 750,000 of the natives. And then they as a refugee, caused refugee. And they built a state, it's called one religion state. See, America, interestingly, America calls itself freedom of religion, freedom of. In America, it's against the law to discriminate against somebody for their religion or their ethnic background. Get somebody's or demolish somebody's home and put, for example, somebody a Christian in place of a Jew or an atheist or a Muslim. It's not demolish the home and put a Christian in place of it. That's the same thing, or some other religion. It's against the law, discriminating on a job. But in Israel, basically created on based on the same discrimination. If you are you can prove that you have a Jewish background, Jewish ancestry or roots, any place in the world, they convince you to move to Palestine and give you free land, free home, and they demolish the native who has lived there thousands of years and give the land to them. And U.S. provides them like $3.5 billion in terms of free arms plus additional billions in money from US that goes there to get occupy that land. Now, the reason this is terrorism too, and creates terrorism, but the reason the US government or media here propagates is that because the land, like almost 5,000 years ago, 3,000 ago, Jewish people were lived there. But 3,000 years ago, those people who were there, maybe there are people who didn't believe in a religion, other religions, or there were some Muslims, they later become Muslims, they lived there, or Christians after Jews, they lived there. But they were not all Jews, even historically. So they all have the right to live there or born on the land and live there. But why should some of them be displaced? Because one based on that, and that is terrorism too, because discrimination causes terrorism. Now that's a big lie too, because a true Jew, Jewish, I have a, from his background Jewish, and I have studied, I've read it, Torah, and it says you love your neighbor as you love yourself. So a true Jew person loves his neighbor. Now, in Israel, doesn't love anybody. Israel doesn't even have a defined border defined. So they created that. Now, the reason they use that to have Jews have a land. So when you have a state, one religion state, Jewish state or Jewish land, then you're going to have Islamic state in Iran. You're going to have Christian state. Anyway, you open a can of worms that every country wants the religion, and the discrimination in terrorism increases. You see how that goes? But if you have a government there for the people who live there, and whatever religion they are, Jews, Muslims, they all live in peace, elect the government they want, and it happens the government to be Jew, Muslim, or Christian, doesn't matter, whoever brings the vote. They vote and elect the government, that is more peaceful. But the reason the United States or UK, Western, don't want that, the reason is that because their majority are Christians, being the United States and Europe, and they accept Judaism because that was before Christianity. First, Jesus was a Jew, then become a Christian, right? So they accept that. So in the books that written, like I don't know how many years after Jesus died, some people say 30 years, some people say 300 years later. The book written in book, somebody who wanted that land put there that James, there is a verse that this land belonged to the Jews. It looks like the God was a real estate agent or real estate developer, was dividing the earth into among people based on the religions. That's what I'm saying. When people are ignorant, they believe this. And then they believe, oh God, yeah, God gave that to the sons of Israel, the Jews, but didn't give any land to the sons of the Christians or sons of the Muslims over there, who even so they might have lived there. They become a different religion later, but they may have lived there for many years, or they've been born on that land. They have to be kicked out or forced out. But the real reason the media shows you that's the religion is because Jews were not fairly treated during World War II. But during World War II, if you look at the statistic, World War I and II, over 130 million people died. And 6 million of them were Jews in World War II. What about the rest of them were different religions? We don't know. Nobody talks about those. Because this kind of philosophy would help justify occupation of that land being used. See, this is how media propagates, or Hollywood propagates lies to to manufacture consent and support, and then American youth will have to go die in the Middle East because they say it's to protect liberty and human rights. Now, you telling me there are human rights in Saudi Arabia, which they cut your head with a sword if you criticize the king, if you say anything bad, or the journalist in United States talks about the king a little bit negative, maybe criticize a little bit. Actually, he was part of the system, but they just criticize a little bit. They pull him, lure him back into the embassy in Ankara, and they chop him up like mafia, and they discard him. So that's terrorism, and that's supported by Trump, by United States. So United States support terrorism the same way in Israel. In Israel, they support this occupation. They say that, and then another. But the real reason is because Middle East is has a lot of rich natural resources, untapped, undeveloped. And in order to control that, either United States will have to go through democratic way. In a democratic way, you do, then the Middle East has to, the people over in the Middle East, they have to, or West Asia, I say, not Middle East, because where is the center, then that is the middle, is disputable. So let's call it West Asia. In West Asia has a lot of natural resources to be either the colonial and imperialist regimes like terrorist supporting regime like United States, UK, in order to have the free oil or free these resources at really cheap, inexpensive price, they have to put these puppet dictators in there, giving them arms to oppress their people so they can go in there and put military bases and the companies and steal their wealth. I'm not saying practically. Maybe sometimes they take them for free, but at a very discounted price, whatever they want. And in return, rather than giving them money, giving them service. So they make money on the services provided and make money on the cheap uh, resources taken from them. Now, if those governments elect their own government, like, for example, Iran, the revolution 79, then the government would watch the interest, wants to sit to US and talk face to face like a business partner. Now in America, you want to do business, you have law backing you up. You go write a contract, you go to court and enforce that contract. But in those countries who have been occupied, like West Asia, when they're occupied and military bases there, you are putting a gun into their head and just sign a dotted line. You're basically coercing them into doing business with you, and that's unfair. So that's why the United States and some Western, basically UK, they support terrorism and they create terrorism. So they can have puppet dictatorship. So they actually, media says we're going in there to promote democracy. We don't like the Iranian government because it's not democratic. But compared to Saudi Arabia, Iran is the heaven of democracy. Imagine they have elections, they have women can drive, has always been a vote, they have parliaments, they have women in there. But Saudi Arabia doesn't have any of those. But it's okay, it's human right, and it's actually a member of human rights in the United Nations. You know why? Because your position in United Nations is how much more money you pay. Now, Saudi Arabia pays more money, it gets on the United Nations Human Rights Council. Saudi Arabia is a member, but there is no human rights in Saudi Arabia. You see how, and the corporate media doesn't tell you that. Corporate media promotes an agenda to make more money for corporations at the despair of majority, especially the third world majority, while on the surface with a smile, we are going there to develop, to promote humanity, to promote human rights, freedom for women. But, in women in the United States, look at how many women even does not have equal rights like men do. They couldn't even vote up to the 1919, early 1900. Even right now, they are being looked at as a sex object, basically, in a lot of cases. I mean, women are fighting really hard. They are not even being treated fairly in the United States. Let go of the West Asia and Saudi Arabia. So first, now the reason I'm talking about United States. United States is the biggest of these warmongers, war creators, biggest discriminators. The 150 years ago, they had slaves were illegal. No country in the 150 years ago had slaves. 6 years ago, they had to make the sum of population sitting back of the buses. No country was doing that 60 years ago. See, so the biggest terrorist so far proved is United States of America. The government is. And then the biggest liar too, because the corporate media is has a self-censored this idiot doesn't tell you the facts. You want this, you have to go search on Google or YouTube or watch videos, read books from Stephen Kinzer, for example, Noam Chomsky, and Ian Pepe, for example, to be able, or even the Jimmy Carter wrote a book, Palestine, Peace, Not Apartheid. Even if President of the United States, he wanted, when he was old, he came to his senses. He found out what is going on in Israel. So now these are all these credits. Israel, the other reason United States supports a one religion state like Israel, media says to be fair with the Jews were all of this. That's not the real reason is to have control over the natural resources of the West Asia. The biggest American military base outside United States is Israel. And Israel doesn't have a border. You know what the border is? Every few years attacks one country, occupies some land, and it keeps going. And ultimate agenda is greater West Asia, Middle East, they call it. So eventual ultimate goal of Israel is to take over the whole Middle East, and they make their capital Babylon and border Iraq and Iran, make their ancient capital, where the Cyrus the Great freed the slave Jews 2,500 years ago. They part of them went to Iran, built the city of Isfahan and lived there, and part of them went to Jerusalem, and but they create now this Zionism, basically racism that came from Germany and supported by UK, US to create the state of Israel in 1948. The agenda is to take over the whole West Asia, make it one country, and bring the culture from Europe and into that region, and basically control their natural resources. So that is the reason. That is the reason, the real reason behind that. So that's why U.S. supports terrorism and the support. Now, what I think this is has harmed. Who is going to harm this kind of policy is going to backfire. Toppling dictator government. Look at back in 1953. Back in actually 1905, the Iranians had a constitutional revolution. The British, and they had like a parliament in Iran, constitutional revolution. They had a democracy, they had a parliament that's elected by the people, and the people elected the parliament, then elect the prime minister to run the country, and the king was supposed to be like England, just a symbol of those atrocities, basically, that England caused. Just do not interfere in the politics. That was the uh, intention of that democracy, that constitutional revolution in 1905 in Iran. But then the UK was basically the empire before World War II. UK was the biggest empire and war terrorists. So what they did is they supported an illiterate army officer, Reza Khan is called, and they brought him to power through a coup d'etat in actually about the same about 19 probably it was 19, I would say 1920 or 1915, between 1915 and 1920. They did a coup d'etat. They got this dictator army general in there. He went there like Sisi in Egypt. This guy, when Reza in Iran went to the parliament, anybody criticized the Shah, the king, he beat them up, he threw them out. He basically made the parliament. He selected parliamentary members himself. There no elections. He killed all the newspapers, shut down all everything, and then ruled the country with killing and massacring people for about 15 years until 1940s, when the Allied invaded Iran to use the railroad that the Shah has built for British to use in Iran. And they used that railroad to help Russia to beat the Nazis, Germany. and occupied Iran for 5 years. But then later on, they brought their Shah, his son to the power. Americans they brought agreed to do that, and then when the people revolted again and they elected a prime minister in the parliament who was democratic elected, Western educated, Dr. Mossadegh, he called Muhammad Mossadegh. Then he was overthrown by CIA because it was nationalizing the oil. And the lie back then was the reason they used was a lie again, was they were afraid of communism or from Russia. But if you read the history of Iranians, I have read their history. Their king, they have a king, they have had over 150,000 years of roots to go back, civilization in that region. And they had kings going back 3,000 years ago, kingdom, they have luxury palaces. Those people in the Iranians' home, when you go have travel in that region, you go to home, they all have this like gold, look like gold-plated chairs. They're all luxury people, believe in palace, believe in class differences. So they could never become a communist in Iranians. I mean, psychologically, they cannot. They never. You cannot find that in a single one of them that strong population, the strong support of communism. And that was a lie because the communism was democratic. And if the people are, if it is a democracy coming in a country, if people are free, they're going to advance. And they're not going to listen to these lies. And they're gonna not going to accept foreigners come over there to put a military base and put a gun into their head and steal their wealth. They're not going to, democratic people don't go for that. You either live free or die. That's democracy. That's a free. That's what America was based on. Of course, America became a terrorist because that democracy was kidnapped by the greed that I'm talking about. But still, there is some. Okay, but even the leader that exists in America, it doesn't exist any place in West Asia because the racism over there is very strong. It's under occupation. The only thing they are getting over there is arms for the puppet governments imposed from outside to suppress their own people, to oppress the people so they cannot revolt. But Iranians were not like that. They have, in the past 100 years, they had two revolutions. The revolution, three. The third one, the Islamic Republic Revolution back in 1979. And even right now, you know why the country become radicalized? You know, back in the early 1900s, when they had the first revolution, if British hadn't taken it out, Iran probably would have been some a lot of countries like Europe or like Japan or Germany or European countries, civilized like Sweden. You know, Iranians could have had that potential. They were very educated, but British took that away from them in 1920, 1915, between 1915 and 1920. And then they revolted again in 1953. This time, Americans with CIA, they sent to Dulles brothers from Kermit Roosevelt, was the grandson of the Roosevelt president, was CIA station chief in Iran back in 1953. Churchill came to they had English because the Shah, the Reza Shah before, they had the Iranian oil company, Anglo-Iranian oil company, was a current BP, was in Iran, and British government had a puppet dictator there and were taking Iranian oil for free, and they were even charging the Iranian for transportation. They said this is poison. And then when the second revolution back in 1953 happened, this prime minister elected by, it was a lawyer, he was elected by the parliament. He came to Truman, and Truman invited him over the United States back then, and he had a ulcer, basically, his Mossadegh. Truman, he sent him to hospital, surgery, he repaired him and cured him. And then Truman sat down, talked to him. He says, why don't you make the oil company 50-50% with British rather than nationalizing the oil? The Mossadegh, he had taken some picture of the Iranian kids in the south of Iran where the oil fields were. He said, see, look at, we are the owners of the wealth. Our kids don't have a school, don't have education, don't have proper education, don't have health care, we don't have they don't have hospitals. They play in these oil pots, the oil spills around, and they get sick and die, while our workers, which are British, they have their own hospital. They have their own schools. They have their own golf course they planned. Took pictures of that. Says, see, these are our workers, contractors, and this is our owners of the wealth, which are our kids, or live like that. Is that fair? Truman was a fair person. I think he was a human at the time. And when he left, he told Churchill, now it's not, I don't think we can, it's a good idea. I am not going to agree to topple this guy. He is right, and he's very popular the way he thinks, because Truman was somewhat democratic in his. Anyhow, then it didn't go. But when Eisenhower came, Churchill came to Eisenhower and said, these are our subjects. The Iranians are British subjects. Subjects mean the slaves. You see the mentality where it comes from? They don't deserve to own. This is our wealth, belongs to us. The oil in the ground and the Iranian land, country he thinks it belongs to them. So Eisenhower agreed to divide it 40%, 40%, the profit. So he sent $1 million with Dulles brothers from Lebanon overnight with the car. They went inside Iran, bribing the parliamentaries, preparing articles, having them printed in the Iranian newspapers. And also British Navy blockaded the Strait of Hormuz, where U.S. is right now, has to get permission from Iran to go through, because that strait goes through Iranian territory. But Iran is an independent country right now, so back then it wasn't, it was very weak. So they blockade, because they had their own puppet governments there, so they wouldn't let them build an army. They blockade the Hormuz, and then they stop shipment of oil with the force, military force. And then overnight, the Shah had run away. Overnight, they bribed the 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 people, the knifers, or the hooligans, the people who were in the working in the bodybuilders, and the criminals. They break the jails and let them loose and give them money to jump in the street and start beating people up. And they brought the Shah back to them power. They signed 2 contracts with him for 25 years, 10 years, or 50 years. 40% of the oil from Iran goes to US, 40% go to British for until 1979, the revolution 78. The revolution, they took them, and they did give the Shah arms. And in Iran at the time, before 1979, 35 million population was Iran at the time. 46% of them lived under poverty in 1979. With a country who was selling 7 million barrels oil a day at $35 a day a barrel per barrel. That is equals to $350 of today, 7 million. But with 30 million, but there was not more than 10 universities there. 85% of people were illiterate, no school, no health care, not enough hospitals. People had to go outside for treatment, go outside for education. But after the revolution happened right now, the US has been trying to topple this government. But right now, there are over 4,000 universities, 97% of people can read and write. Over 80% of them have higher education degrees in Iranian, and they have scientists. They have a military. They have a space program. They reach uranium, and the country has gone. Now, U.S. is opposing that. You know why opposing that? Because the U.S. cannot put a puppet dictator like the Shah there to oppress them, give him, like Shah was number one customer of U.S. military, to oppress his own people and threaten the neighbors. Anybody said anything to what the Saudi Arabia does right now. That's same. Saudi Arabia was number two, was number one. But the people got free, and now this animosity against United States, he has roots. So that is what I'm trying to get at. I give you an example. Supporting terrorism and terrorism will only create more terrorism and more animosities. And eventually, back then, maybe people didn't have atomic bombs. Only United States had. And if Japan, was actually World War II, Japan has lost the war and yielded, but US tested 2 atoms in Japan, killing hundreds of thousands of people in 30 seconds to just test the magnitude of these bombs. But now everybody has it. Iran has it, Pakistan has it, India has it, China has it, Russia has it, France has it, England has it. You see, and in Iran, Iranian have it too. So what happens is United States cannot go, UK cannot go and block the Strait of Hormuz because Iran is strong. And now, if he kidnaps an Iranian, pirates an Iranian ships, Iranian get another British ship and make him to go back. And United States knows he hit Iranian General Soleimani. Iran, Iranians hit American base Ain al-Assad in Iraq. See, but when you hit back, if now America will not mess with a country who is powerful, has the ability to hit back. Now they can't. Now they're doing sanctions on Iran. Sanctions is terrorism too, because when you put sanction, medicine, go into a country or try to block their food, block to their income, you're trying panic. You're creating panic. You're hurting. You're using violence against the ordinary people for a political aim because you want to subdue the people. You want to subdue the government. So basically, you are supporting terrorism. You see. And now you see all these. Now those countries have you head back, they head back too. That's why it's getting dangerous. That's why I'm afraid. That's why I wrote the book. That's why I'm talking here. I want us to live in a safer world. I wanted to be our kids to grow up to save, to have a better future, not live in a panic. Right now, when United States occupies other countries like Iraq against their will, Iraqi parliament voted for military countries to leave Iraq, and U.S. is refusing to leave. Now, if U.S. have been hurt, British got killed, British got out. Now, U.S. is staying there, but if U.S. does not get out of Iraq, then terrorism is going to increase. They're going to attack you personally. They're going to be more death. And who is going to, these poor kids are going to die who don't benefit from this because Trump wants to make his 2 billion, 3 billion. Or the racist, the ruling class, the billionaires want them make increase their billions. Now the ordinary guy who makes not even $2,000 a month with the rifle, he's endangering his life. He's poor guy, kid, he thinks he's defending his country. He's not defending country. Defending country is fighting the borders and defending borders of America, which is Mexico, Canada, Atlantic, and Pacific Ocean. In Iraq, you are in Iraq, you're killing innocent people, you're killing civilians to to have the control over the country natural resources of that country. You're a terrorist no matter what you wear, what kind of clothes you put. Police, you hang a cross, you go in as a priest, you go in as a contractor, you go in as a soldier. You're serving an agenda to control the natural resources that belong to some other people. The supporting you is killing them. You're scaring them for a political aim. You're terrorists. They're all terrorists, and that is going to eventually come over here. But you chickens going to come to roost, to home to roost. These terrorists is going to, as we saw in 9/11, those Bin Laden or those people who did that, if you said that they had a chance to talk, they probably would have a reason too. They would say because Saudi Arabia is occupied by United States, their country. The ones who Jordan, they would say the same thing. Their country is occupied by United States because a military base and give arm to a puppet dictator they didn't elect and is killing their people. So America can, some individuals in America can make money because ordinary Americans, majority of them don't benefit from this. They get killed and they get harassed and they get terrorized because a few individual greedy people make more profit. That's why I said the reason for terrorism is greed, make more money. It's over money. But the corporate media doesn't tell you that. Corporate media tells you, oh, we are there promoting democracy and human. And they get a woman over there or a girl gets shot, for example, by Taliban in Pakistan. Who created Taliban again? Taliban created 1980s when the Soviet invaded Afghanistan. United States, CIA with Emirates, UAE and Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, they trained part of the Arabs and the Pakistanis, religion fanatics, and some maybe a few of them maybe Afghans. They trained them to go fight Soviets to free your country. Once they got rid of the Soviet, they give them arms. Then they told United States, now you need to get out. United States doesn't want to get out. So they label them as terrorists now. But who created these terrorists? United CIA, United States. That's in history. There's nothing more. There are pictures. Reagan sitting have a meeting with them in the White House from 1980. It's on the cover of my book. It's in my book too. I talk about that in Terrorism: The Truth. So America created terrorism, Taliban. America created ISIS. How did America created ISIS? The terrorism, and then blames other ones. Blames the victim of the people of the region. Created Taliban, throw it in Afghanistan. Now he uses an excuse to invade Afghanistan because the terrorists from Saudi Arabia invaded Afghanistan because he wanted to get a pipeline oil from Caspian Sea. They found oil to Oman, the Sea of Oman, to ship to Afghanistan and Pakistan. But it didn't go successful because Afghans they resisted the Taliban. Now they got Taliban going with the government of Afghanistan. This government of Afghanistan all along have been supported by Iran before, but U.S. was supporting Taliban. The three countries recognized. They gave them a seat to United Nations. Three countries: U.S., U.K., U.S., UAE, Emirates, and Saudi Arabia. They supported Taliban, and British they did too. France and stuff to some point. They gave them ordinary thing, and then when they didn't listen to them, they become invaded them for benefits for profit and label them as terrorists now. But then again, they go sit and negotiate with them. That at the same time, they say we don't negotiate with terrorists. You see how that goes? And the corporate media doesn't. The corporate media wants to make money. It's worried about Kim Kardashian's rear, how big, how nice it looks, how many boyfriends she have, or her movies, or Madonna's underwear, what color is, or gays and lesbians when they want to have sex. He worries about make that a subject. Otherwise, who cares how people have sex, where they take it, what they do? It's their business. It's nobody's business if a guy with a guy with it's nobody's business. What should it become an issue at all to begin with? As long as the human has existed thousands of years ago, hundred thousands, this kind of behavior existed. It never been really issue. Why they bring it media and make it a subject? Because they want to distract from the facts, which is causing terrorism, which is causing harm to this country, which is endangering Americans, which is killing Americans, which is wasting the taxpayers' money in this country. In America, there are 50 million people live on food stamp, 49 million. There are millions of people homeless, starving. Tens of thousands of people are being killed every year with guns and stuff. And then America spends almost $1 trillion of building building bigger nuclear bombs. Bigger bombs. America has enough bombs right now with probably two or three of them can blow up the whole earth. Why does it need thousands? Why does it need to improve and make him stronger? Because if you do that, then the other parties are going to go do that too. So the money, 1 billion people on earth live, die, sleep every night hungry, die of hunger. Thousands of people around the world of diseases. Even in America, how many homeless are here? Look at why did George Floyd get killed for $20, whereas United States, United States government spends $1 trillion on building bigger bombs to kill more people. But as one of the citizens for $20 get killed, or people sleep on the streets in Los Angeles, Skid Row. People are sleeping in Chicago. Look at during these demonstrations, since been going on since George Floyd. I bet you tens of thousands of people have been shot and killed and by police and stuff, and you don't hear that on the news much of them. You don't hear hardly anybody got killed. All they do is they talk about coronavirus came. This coronavirus thing, this is terrorism. This coronavirus came generated from a lab in Wuhan that was funded by United States government. How many places have you heard that? Do some research. See if that's true or not. And why the United States who have more than 25 laboratories all over the Western Asia, around China, working on this biochemical warfare. Actually, the China was going to be the biggest economy by 2020. But maybe CIA, US administration, they decided how to slow down China. There is conflict. So they created this virus to throw it at China, but somehow got out of hand because, there is an old saying, it says, live by the sword, die by the sword. The evil agenda to create this virus, maybe to give it to Chinese to slow down the economy, it backfired. The same thing, the revolution, the coup d'etat in Iran back in 1953 backfired right now that the Iranian hostilities with the United States. Otherwise, Iranian people are the same like Americans. They like to live in luxury, in peace, in happiness. Don't you think they do? They have all those wealth. But they are in a situation they are right now even because of sanctions. United States sanctions them to make the situation worse, so they revolt against the government and bring back a puppet government like the Shah or like MBS, and then the puppet government. I mean, so uh, they want to replace that government in Iran. The people rise up because sanctions, pressure. So the top government gets toppled. They put another puppet dictator in there like the Shah, so that it opens up the door for the natural resources to come and take it from him and become their arm customer. So they promote killing or terrorism. The same thing with Venezuela too. So that is the problem, that's why we are in here today. And that we found out the world biggest terrorist, as Noam Chomsky says, is United States government. I just proved to you because the United States is the biggest military power with the biggest military bases, with the biggest influence in the world to create terror and killing and destruction to profit from arms sale. And so these Hollywood basically conditions make these movies promoting violence, promoting guns, promoting drinking, promoting sex, promoting all of these, what, to make money. And the message they give in there that America is fighting the war to promote human rights, democracy, and freedom. And there is no bigger lie than this that ever existed. I just proved to you. America is the source of terrorism in the world, basically. You know why the source? Because it supports tyranny, it supports dictatorship, in invasion, occupation, and that does create terrorism. Who else, which other country supports that as much as that? They considered China an enemy. China wasn't even recognized as a country by United States until 1971, when he finally got the atomic bomb, become atomic power. Chinese ate insects from 70. They're so poor. When the British were there back in before 1948, China was the opium hub of the Asia. Like Afghanistan is opium hub for America right now. All the drugs, when the drugs were before invasion of United States to Afghanistan, they said the opium source of income for Taliban was 6 tons a year. When the America moved in there, it was over 60. Officially, the statistics show over 60 tons, but they say unofficially it's over 100 tons. If 10 times fold over is more production. What does it do? You want to eliminate the Rockefeller with Mexico, all the drug cartel in Mexico, in South America. If you want to eliminate a business, if you really truly want to eliminate a business, is to eliminate its market. Where do they sell these drugs from Mexico, from Afghanistan? Goes to Europe or America. CIA back in 60s, you read that, you can find out CIA back in 60s would take arms to Nicaragua to create fake revolutions in South America, Central, and install a puppet dictator rather than elected one by the people, to topple elected and put puppet dictator. And bring back cocaine to spread. So, do you see how that goes? Now, who creates terrorism? Who is the biggest terrorist in the world? And labeling the victim. Those Iran, if it's called Iran is a terrorist, Iran is a victim. As I told you, read the 100 years of history of Iran. See who took the democracy from Iranians. First British and then United States. And now who is sanctioning Iranians? Why they're sanctioning Iran? Iranians have the right, they say with Iranians, because US has gone 50 military bases around Iran and threatening Iran. Took his navy to Persian Gulf and tell Iranians, tell Iranian navies they are harassing us. See where this mentality come from? Your America is thousands of miles away in a waterway. It's called Persian Gulf. It's not Mexican Gulf. Mexico, Gulf of Mexico. It's Persian Gulf. It's thousands of miles away. It's gone there and it threatens Iranian Navy who own that waterway. They have lived there for thousands of years. Persian Empire was from North China. Look in the Google map. Look for Persian Empire. Was from North China to North Africa, from Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea. That was all Persian Empire. I mean, all these people at one point in time, they were relatives. They were interconnected. So of course, Iran has the influence in that region. It was the empire, Persian Empire. Of course, Persian Gulf, Iran has. And US says Iran needs to get out of its own territory, go back to a secluded corner, sit there. US, United States government from thousands of miles away, from the other side of the world, has the right to come here and tell you how to live, tell you what to eat, what not to eat, how to behave in your own home. Where is this mentality come from? The slavery, because it come from the forefathers. British slavery is not prohibited in Christianity. See, because see who brought the slaves here? I know the blacks were sold to maybe Portuguese first by the blacks. So blacks had a hand in enslaving themselves. But then the British, they sold it to British too. British brought it to America and abused them. And then they owned them, they raped them. The same thing they go when they go into Afghanistan, the soldiers, they get drunk and break a home in the middle, rape people and kill people in there, and nobody, there's no court there to prosecute this and come go out there. So that is terrorism. Those are real terrorists. The people who invade a country middle of the night, go into people's home, rape their kids, kill their kids. Those are terrorists. Not the people who are defending their home. No, they invade Lebanon. They call Lebanese terrorists, like part of them maybe Hezbollah, the ones who want to resist the occupation, like Hezbollah, they call them terrorists. But those people are Lebanese. They're fighting in their own home, defending a few days ago, Pompeo sends a tweet that American Marines anniversary, they get killed by the terrorists. They get killed by the Lebanese. Whatever were they doing? I'm not saying killing is right. Violence in any form is wrong, and I'm opposed that. But I'm trying to explain to you that when the military goes into a country, what do you expect? You expect them to trick and treat you, give you candies? This is only movies. In reality, if a military with uniform and gun walk into somebody else's country or home, expect them to fight back and fire you. If they don't, they're traitors. Now, anybody invades America, Russia, China, anybody here, I will volunteer to be the first one go defend America's border, Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, Mexico, and Canada. But going outside this country, invading another country, I won't go. And anybody who goes is a fool. Is being used, is a criminal, and is a terrorist. I just prove you how. Because you go into somebody else's home. Why are you going somewhere? You're not going to go there to develop. You cannot promote human rights, freedom, and democracy with violence. Violence brings violence. Violence results in dictatorship. Violence results in death. Violence results in destruction. You can only bring human right, freedom, and democracy through equal treatment, equal rights from the citizens, through helping rebuild the world, build the society, build hospitals, build roads, build education center, build universities. Not go in there with the military and kill the people who defend their homes and take their wealth and leave them with poverty and destruction like Africa, like part of the Middle East, like Iraq. Was Libya, better off before American invasion or Western invasion in Libya or now? Libya was one of the richest country in the Africa before during Gaddafi. Gaddafi was a dictator, no doubt. But the reason, the way is not, violence is not to take out a dictator. Violence will replace the dictator with either chaos and terrorism or another dictator. You want to get rid of dictator, you want to promote human rights, you want to promote democracy, you want to promote freedom, you go in there, talk to them, and see how you can help to build more universities, more roads, more hospitals, educate people. Not get one person, for example, one girl gets high school gets killed, gets shot by Taliban, the same terrorists that United States created in Pakistan, and bring the girl and advertise it around town, United Nations, the symbol of freedom. This is a propaganda because thousands, millions like here are dying under the bombs that made give it to them by America, throw on them with America. There are weddings that are being turned into funerals with American bombs or missiles or soldiers. There are girls like that that have been thousands of them, be hundreds of them being raped in Afghanistan, Iraq, Yemen, or all over. For Saudis, American weapons killed in America. That is the fact. But the media is falsifying the truth. My book tells the truth, terrorism, the truth. And everything I say in the book, any news agency, any world area, they ask me, I come over there and I prove to them the world biggest terrorist is the government of United States of America and his allies. And what it says is a lie that he wants to promote them. It doesn't give a hook about democracy, human rights, and people's life. Even, for example, here, look at here. In America, Trump is elected by the people of America. Does he give a damn for anybody's life? America has the worst, the highest death rate of coronavirus, the richest country in the world, the strongest country in the world, the countries with the most scientists, more educated people, has the most coronavirus death. This is terrorism. That president is a terrorist, Trump, who terrorizes American, but not rather than investing the companies, the resource, the America's resources and the taxes it collects from the people in building more in research inside the country and in medical infrastructure, maybe PPEs, the infrastructure to get ready for pandemic because pandemic could happen anytime. With all when you do adventurism like that, play with viruses, there is a possibility that happen. You play with a gun, it may blow up, but shoot you in the foot yourself. But you're prepared for it. You got to be prepared for it rather than getting the country prepared for disasters like this. It invested in making bigger bombs to create more terrorism. So that the biggest terrorist is the address if you want to look for 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Go there. And the next one is people who support his policies, like Pompeo and those guys. These are terrorists. These are real terrorists. But the media doesn't show them as a terrorist. They lies. They say they are freedom fighters. I mean, how could somebody go into invade another country, kills the woman, rape him, kill them, bomb him, and put a dictator in there and is a freedom fighter? That is terrorist. The freedom fighter is the one who is defending his home, his country, whatever country it is defending it against the invasion, occupation, the foreign force. That is a freedom fighter, wherever it is. That makes sense. So now let me tell you, if anybody who supports this kind of terrorism, state-sponsored terrorism, they think that if we go into these countries and we create terrorism, our life is going to get better. No, our resources are being wasted. Why are we investing $1 billion, $1 trillion in weapons to build an army to protect? Because we have so many enemies. How are you going to have enemies when you invade these countries? When you kill them? When you kill Soleimani, the General Soleimani of Iran? He was a populist. You saw his funeral on TV. He probably now you killed one. There are 1,000 people that are ready to sacrifice their life like him because they were devoted to him. He was a very popular, and they know that died for his country. And they said, how come he was killing Americans in Iraq? I know killing is bad. Killing is murder. Violence is bad. I am opposed to that. Killing anybody, any place in the world is bad, is wrong, and I don't support it. But the question should be, what were American soldiers doing in Iraq? They were occupying a country. Why did they go into Iraq? They didn't have a good reason. As we all know, they lied to go in there. They went there. They occupy country because it's the second or third largest oil reserves in the world, and they take the oil for free. They want to put a puppet, and the people of that country are defending their home. So they fight the occupiers, so they kill them. The same thing is going to happen right now if the Americans don't get out of Iraq and Afghanistan pretty soon. Because right now we don't hear everything on the news. But there are a lot of people are getting killed. They move around the death and put it different places, and some of them don't even say. And it's going to get worse. And then they're going to become our enemy. Then we become unsafe in America. We want us to be safe. In order for us to be safe, we got to pull our troops and stop occupation, stop supporting tyranny, stop supporting terrorism by invading countries, in supporting puppet dictators, supporting racism. Solution for Israeli conflict will eliminate terrorism in West Asia and free us from terrorism forever. Solution doesn't have to kill single person, doesn't have to be shoot a single bullet. The solution in Israel is election. Election, but everybody who lives on that Palestine, that where the Jews are, and the West Bank, Gaza, with the Tel Aviv, the Israeli, all the people in that region, they take away the name, the one Jewish state name, and let everybody, but any religion, even atheists, Muslim, Christian, atheist, Jew, they all select a government representative of everybody. Then you have ultimate peace there. Then there won't be any excuse for Iranians to want to support Palestine, to help Hamas, help this, and create, you say terrorism. I think Hamas is a freedom. They're fighting for the home. They're Palestinian. How could somebody defend his home in his home? If somebody invades my home right now, I have every right to defend my home. I'm not called terrorist. The one who invades me is a terrorist, who comes to occupy my home. You see, my neighbor comes and occupies like 2 bedroom of my house, 3 bedroom, and I going to they put me in a 1 bedroom and lock the door. And if I want to come out, they shoot me and says he's terrorist. And there's somebody, another neighbor outside says, yeah, you're right. The guy who owns the home is a terrorist, and the guy who invaded, he owns the place because he is, for example, Jewish or Christian or something. See, it doesn't make sense. And then the Jerusalem people of all the religion who that is town is holy for them, they can go and pray there freely. When there's a government that encounters that another religion belongs to any particular religion, is a government for everybody. That brings peace to the world. That 90% of the world terrorism will end just with that simple solution. But United States doesn't want to do that because United States, that conflict in there gives excuse to give arms to puppet dictators to suppress the people, and Israel from there he gives them arms. He just killing these people around him and increase his border. But from that was what was happening up to 20 years ago, 30 years ago. But with the Iranian Revolution, the United States hates Iran so much because since the Iran Revolution came, Iran become a powerful independent country right now. Not Israel is building walls around it now. Before it didn't have any walls. It would go into Egypt, get Sinai, get part of Jordan, they keep expanding it, planning to expand. And United States went to Iraq to get the Iraq, so it joined the Iraq as part of one country with Jordan and Israel to make it one greater Middle East, one country ruled by Israel, by United States. That was the whole idea. But Iran is stopping it, and that's why United States hates it. But why do we have to go to other countries? We can have their resources. We can have all the resources in the Middle East peacefully. And Americans would be safe too, and we will enjoy it too, and we will profit from it too. Because we can go there, work, they can come here, we can work, communicate, rather than building walls and then go kill them. Because believe me, they have the guns that we do. They have the atomic bomb. Maybe we have 5,000. Maybe they have 100 or 50. But a couple of them is enough. One or two. They don't need to use 5,000 to destroy, or they don't need to use. They have now the means to get here too. I mean, Korea can get from all other sides, get it to New York or maybe California. North Korea. And North Korea has been sanctioned almost by everybody, and the United States, and doesn't have any neighbors except one China. and they can, and Iran can too. So but if it gets to that point, everybody dies. You know, Einstein's was asked what the third world war would look like. Einstein, you know what he said? He says, I do not know about the third world war. What I know, if third world war happens, in the fourth world war, people have to fight with a stick. You see, Einstein. And Einstein, what does he say? He said, peace cannot be kept by force. Peace is achieved by understanding. My intention is I want to create an understanding. So if we talk to the Iranians, not from up down, from level, we can prevent a biggest war in the Middle East. Because war with Iran is third world war. Then we have to fight with the stick, the fourth war, if anybody is alive. It's not a joke. I have done 10, 15 years of reading, research, all of these since I retired, and I can tell you the fact that you see that since World War II, no country has hit back United States. United States, any country United States hit, dare to hit back. But Iran hit United States back in there. And now they had maybe hundreds or thousands of missiles ready to hit back again. But United States didn't hit back. Even Trump says he was going to hit 52 sites or something, and then he back out. He did a smart move. Had it done like that, things would have been a lot different. I hope it won't happen. I want the peace. No, but if we want to have peace, we cannot have somebody in the White House who acts like a mafia. This guy, he owns gambling casinos. He's a mafia. A part of it. He had been working all of his life with mafia, and now his best friends are terrorists, journalists, butchers like MBS, and racists, Netanyahu, who thinks, who calls everybody Gentiles, and they think that only Jewish state, only Jews have the right to live in that area, and this is a racist. So his friends, so Trump, Eisenhower has a good saying. He says, Eisenhower says, you are who you associate with. Trump has been associating, or Pompeo has been associating with terrorists, the MBS, UAE, all those tyrants or dictators or cruel regimes and racist regimes like Israel, Netanyahu and stuff. And they are already racist, but they become worse racists and they become terrorists now too. So you are who you associate with. Now, if you want to have peace in America, you want to prosper, we have to unite the world to fight current common enemy. Common enemy is racism. Common enemy is violence. Common enemy is war. Common enemy is rape and destruction. And United States foreign policy, even domestic policy, creates domestic policy with racism creates terrorism. Domestic United States government and United States foreign policy creates terrorism all over the world. But whereas the reason is the government is a ruling class, these people in the government, everything. Why do you think America has highest death rate? As I said, because they put the money in the military, because profit is over life. Profit is more important. When a system, people in the government, they all care about profit, making profit. They have to kill the elderly, the people who are old. They are not working anymore. See, I'm retired. I can go to work and generate income. I'm living on retirement and I read my book until my day is over. Okay, so but they have to get rid of older people like me or older retired. So because they are burdened to the capitalism in this society in America, they are cost money. The Medicare cost goes up, you have to pay more out. The medical goes up, they have to pay more out. These old people are not producing anything, so they have to die. So America created this virus in Wuhan lab for China. Maybe come here, Trump doesn't do anything, sit back and doesn't get the country united to fight this epidemic to save lives. More than 70% of these people, they are in the elderly, this disease in the elderly care, and those people are dying. You see what I'm saying? So because money is more important. Now, if the life of people was important, Trump wouldn't get out of who. the World Health Organization, would cooperate with other countries like China, like all the world would have a meeting in United Nations, representative, all the foreign ministers, all the countries come, they develop, organize a team to fight the epidemic in the world, and like who, and supported through who, to with that scientists from all the countries coming together, sit down and prepare a virus. I bet you in about a few months they could have the virus that works. But now you, by dividing them, why are they buying them? Because United States, Trump wants one of these bodies in the pharmaceuticals who give them bigger donations. One of them come up with a virus and exclusively, and then try to sell it more to the other people, make more profits. In the meanwhile, Americans die in tens of thousands of dollars, while the guy trying to hold back and divide the world to come up, make it a race to have a vaccine, and then as a result causes deaths in America and in the world, because when he gets money, he get patented and he make more profit. You see how it goes? So these are all current terrorism. We know now, we identified, we explained the terrorism, we identified who is terrorist, and now all we have to do is to solve terrorism. The solution to terrorism is peace. Peace through election. The first step is for US to get out of Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, in these wars, Egypt, and get out the troops, bring the troops back home from it. We don't need, there is no war. Nobody's invading anybody countries. If we leave, come out, the troops. Bring the troops home as much as. So once you bring the troops home, then the strategy is resolve the Palestinian-Israeli issue through vote, through election. Everybody living in that land, you don't need to divide them. It's never going to work. It hasn't worked. It's not a waste of time. They know it's not going to work. They're just buying time, buying time, buying time to torture those people, eliminate ethnic cleansing like they did with Indians. They 130 million 500 years ago, right now less than 5 million. They want the same thing to do with the people who resist in the Middle East. They kill them, ethnic cleanse them, take them all them out, pacify them, buy time. But it's not going to happen. The difference between Indians and the people in West Asia, Indians didn't have, they have a religion called Islam. That religion motivates them to die rather than live under oppression. And that's why they're going to keep dying until the United States get out. Unfortunately, a lot of Americans are going to die, a lot of people are going to die, which is not good. I don't want that to happen. I want peace for everybody. I want safety for everybody, especially Americans or people around the world. I don't want a single person get died. When we can build, we can create. Why should we destroy? That's what I believe. So, but United States can bring the troops home, so have an election in the occupied land, the Israel, everything combined, those people elect, and people who have migrated there later with back in 1948, then the government get less and maybe give them citizenship or residency. And the people who have been forced out, 750, either giving them money or giving them reparation. Either they want money or they can have the right to come back and give them, I'm sure they can give them an apartment or someplace and they live in their homeland if they decide to do that. Some may not want to come. That's the resolve. Once we resolve that, 90% of it will go. And we don't have to spend $1 trillion a year to build bigger bombs to kill them. We can spend that money, get the poverty uprooted in America, invest it in education, free education up to university degree, 4-year college, free health care provide, build this infrastructure of the country. The bridges are falling apart. Most of the bridges in America infrastructure were built in 1950s. Right now, a lot of them have surpassed their lifespan. That's why you hear every time one bridge comes down, a few people die. We can prevent death in America. We can improve education, healthcare, build a country, empower the people. We have a happier country. We have less gun violence. We have less killing. We have, everybody would be happier. That is what we should be doing. That's a solution to the war terrorism. I said it. Election in Palestine, Israel combined, American troops out of the Middle East, West Asia, and the wards where they are not wanted. And I'm sure every country ask the vote in that country whether they want American troops or not. If the people vote no, they should get out. But I'm sure not all of them are going to vote now. And don't support the Tehran regime like Saudi Arabia now, because the more you support, the more those people are going to hate Americans, or the people who supporting the puppet dictator who kills them, who beheads them, who takes the right away to vote. They're going to, and then the same thing like Iran. So Iranians, they're opposing America because of that, because America supported tyranny, took away their democracy. I told you why. The same thing, Saudi Arabia, when the revolution happens, they're going to hate, then they're going to be joining Iranians hating Americans. UAEs, all those people in West Asia, Yemen, look at them, they're doing it. All they're going to hate more, more, more. And it's going to be a really very, very dangerous situation. And then look at what we have to do. I'm trying to prevent that. Okay, so I hope listen to this now. I know it's a long. I've recorded in 3 segments, but I'm going to join them together, put them as one segment because I didn't stop. I just various reasons I stopped. But if you can listen to all, I suggest listen to every piece a little bit and come back listen to next week. Listen to next week rather than me uploading 5 or 10 videos. I just put one long one, and you listen to the part every part maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, as much as you can, and then I would suggest listen to multiple times and leave me comments. If I'm wrong, let me know, because my intentions, my goal is here from rather than be on a golf course like Trump. He doesn't care for people. He goes golf course. Americans like. I care for people. I'm a human. I'm not a psychopath like Trump or Pompeo. I'm human. I care for people. So I sit here and I spend my own time to talk my research I did on my own time, my own expense, to help make the world a better place, make America a safer place. America is a very beautiful country. It has a very beautiful people. But unfortunately, the government is a terrorist, is a criminal, and the world biggest one too. And I prove you why. Now, the reason we do is we need to do something about that. We need to peacefully somehow get the word, talk, tell as many people you have. So people don't go get killed, invade Saudi Arabia, invade Afghanistan or Pakistan because some company here wants to make million. People should realize that if you kill people, one person, there are going to be 10 more. They're going to multiple because they're going to be 10 more people. They're going to get this revenge. So eventually, a lot of people, want to get revenge and kill us. And then where are we going to hide? We don't have a place to hide. We want to live in the public. We want to go out, come out there. We have to promote peace, prosperity, to be safe. We cannot, why Trump is worried about bigger police, bigger military? He's stupid. He's ignorant. His IQ, if you go test him, he's a billionaire because his dad lived him somewhere, and he's a gambler. He's a mafia. You know why he goes assassinate people in another city? He assassinated the Iranian general to make the Iranian leader to submit to him. But he's so fucking stupid. Sorry about the language, that he doesn't know, that doesn't know the culture because he had read a book in his life. He doesn't know anything. He's just like a showman. He's not a person. Showman is like a show movie, a fake. They tell him what to do. He goes kill him. He wants to scare him. He knows that if he kill him, they're going to be another 1,000 people behind him. They wanted to get his revenge, and they're going to make songs. They're going to make movies for him, and now he's going to be another hero that they're going to give him the cause to increase terrorism or increase American assassination or threats to America insecure. So it makes us more insecure than secure. If we're trying to make others insecure around the world, actually we're making ourselves insecure. Because Trump can afford to get his bodyguards, protection, Secret Service. But as an American, I can't. If I go to Middle East, they may say American passport, they may shoot me, kill me. I'm trying to save myself. We have to save ourselves. We shouldn't listen to this garbage they feed us. He's a mafia. A mafia goes assassinate to get somebody else to submission. Godfather movie, he would go assassinate. Trump is because he's gambling. He owns casinos. He's hanging out with mafia and terrorists and tyrants. So he calls only a dictator calls the military against his own people. He sends the military to Oregon to different people to go against people. Locals can solve the issues. People come on the street, they endanger their life because they really have a problem. If these are young people, these are Americans, these are lives, these are people. Why people in this pandemic? I'm afraid to go out of the office or home with a mask. Because afraid to may get it. These people come and demonstrate because see how bad their life is in America. We should improve their life so they don't do that. Using the force only creates force. You're going to militarize them by sending a military. Why do you think Trump wants to fund the police, more money to the police, more? Because they steal more. A thief, a crook, a criminal needs to hide and protect himself from law. Ordinary people do not need to do that. The bigger police, bigger military is to protect the bigger thieves, bigger criminals, bigger terrorists, is not to protect ordinary Americans. Ordinary Americans, if you haven't done nothing, unless they do something, they go into a country, invade a country, kill women and kids and rapes and steal their wealth and put the dictators on there and support them and give them arms. And those people of those countries, they think all America, they cannot get their hands on those politicians. They have, as I said, the Secret Service, they have bigger police, bigger Navy, Army. They get a hold of the hand of ordinary Americans like you and I. And we're going to be insecure. Our security is going to be jeopardized because he wants to make more billions of dollars. See, and we not support that. I'm doing what I can. I sit there and talk about it. I wrote a book on it. I think every American should do that, should raise their voice and peacefully and contest that the wars. Why do we have so many military budgets so high? Why are they invading countries? Why do we have so many military bases around the countries? Why don't we bring our troops home? Why don't we have elections in Israel to eliminate the terrorism? See, Americans could support this, but these politicians in their pocket, these politicians are psychopaths. First, maybe they're good. After a while, they become greedy and rich. They become a slave to the system, and then they get more money. They promote the agenda of the terrorism. The same support the same thing. Yeah, we go in the world to promote human rights and freedom. Bullshit. You know it's a lie. I know it's a lie. So why do you support vote for him like that? They go call him and tell him don't bullshit with us. We know what you're doing. We need to bring the troops home. We need to have elections in the country. We need every country we have puppet dictator. We need to withdraw our support so that people can elect the government. And people of the world are not terrorists. They are not going to come here if they elect their own government. We just have to deal with them, and it's going to cost us a lot because all the money we spend in the military, we're going to save that a lot of that. And then we want oil. They want to sell the oil. They have to sell the oil to survive, to food, to eat. They want to eat too. So they have to trade. So they sell the oil too. It probably be cheaper too, but it will be cheaper for us too, because then we don't have to pay for military, these high taxes to go over there to support these public dictators so they can steal the oil for free and sell it to, for $4 a gallon to us. You see what I'm saying? That is one of the problems. So I hope I've been able to shed some light on the situation. God bless everybody. Peace upon everybody. And if you can't be peaceful, don't listen to my words. Because what I have said or what I have written in my books is for the people who are seeking peace and stability and coexistence and happiness and health for everybody in the world. God bless you. Thank you. Bye.